I used to walk caterpillars around the block instead of
As a kid, pushing caterpillars in a stroller?
yeah. So people would come in and look in the stroller and be like, "Oh, look at the baby." Oh, and they'd be like, "That's disgusting."
Why is there
Yeah.
a bug
You
in
were
there?
saying, look at the baby. Welcome to the Acid for Squares podcast. I'm your host, Cody Blue.
I'm Tanya Dahl, and today we have in the hot seat here at A4S Studios, Maria Bertrand. Thank you so much for coming and being here.
I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, so let me tell you about Maria. So Maria is a filmmaker, storyteller, writer, director. She basically does all the things. On top of that, Maria is a
Activist. Kindness activist.
Maria.
Elevating consciousness through her art. Just
Yes.
all around badass and kind human being.
Yes.
I'll take that.
And
Gosh.
I want to tell you, so Maria and I met in 2018 volunteering at a wolf sanctuary,
As
which
one
first of all,
does.
so cool. That just like shows you who Maria is. Also, we also did a beach cleanup together a couple like months later. And this is the entirety of Maria. She is a bleeding heart for all beings, human
beings.
to animal to insect. She's a sister after my own heart.
Yeah.
As
You two are very similar, I must say. And Maria, this is our first time meeting, and I've heard so much about you. And it first started following you and your journey with your pet sparrow, Happy, on TikTok, which meant I get a good little 30 to 60 second long cry throughout the week where Tanya comes and says, "Look at my friend Maria, look at her sparrow."
look at her Instagram page.
And then you made this amazing feature-length documentary, Finding Happy, which we've just watched, and
is also killing it at the film festivals right now.
Killing it.
Congratulations.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
That's
We're
so
very
huge.
excited.
that 30, 60-second cry turned into a 90-minute cry. So I appreciate the catharsis.
We were just crying the whole time. It's so good.
Yeah. So where we would like to start this, because we could talk to you about so much, and we really want to tie in the work you do and what you've been doing and your journey with Happy into the themes this show has been exploring. So as you know, we explore a lot of paranormal, supernatural, spiritual, ancient wisdoms, disclosure, ETs, psychedelics.
The fun stuff.
All
the things.
that fun stuff, all the things. And one of the fascinating things is when it comes down to people listening to people who claim to have contact experiences or listening to the indigenous people who want to share their shamanic wisdoms. The heartbeat, one of the first things of the wisdom traditions, is to humble yourself like the animals, that the animals carry ancient wisdom, and coming into resonance and coexistence with the animal kingdom is a gateway to a brighter world. And we've had some experiential phenomenon with ETs and ceremonies, and there is a central thesis around: if you think you're ready for extraplanetary contact, you're not. You can't even coexist with the other beings on your planet. So can you tell us about the spiritual journey you've been on with animals and finding Happy and how it changed your life?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think since I can remember, I've had a spiritual journey with animals. If my mom was here, she'd be like, "Oh, she has a connection to animals that's just, it's always been something that's, I don't know, in me that I've outwardly expressed." With Happy specifically, oh my goodness. And it's interesting what you were saying about animals who are just so much more in tune than we are. I mean, we strive to live in the present moment. Like as humans, we're like, oh, just live in the present moment. That's the highest spirituality, where animals are constantly in the present moment. So I don't know why everyone's shocked that it's like, no, animals literally know more than we do. Because
For sure.
It's not that, like, it's not rocket science. But with Happy, I mean, I think I was too busy not living in the present moment for a long time and putting so much stress on myself for years in an industry that is pretty unforgiving. And when you want to come into an industry like this with an authentic message, it can really rip your soul out pretty hardcore.
We know that very well.
We know a thing or two about that. I
Yeah.
think that's why we built this place.
And this room, like, I can't even. I still am like, oh my God,
you.
I feel like I'm in like another planet, and I
Yes.
love it so much.
But you went into the jaws of Hollywood.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, got like dicked around, pardon my expression.
Same.
But,
No,
yeah.
we could say it.
Right?
Dicked around, still getting dicked around.
Constantly.
Yep.
But what was interesting with Happy, so right before the pandemic hit, I had a couple projects that actually had started going, and I had been writing for a decade without getting my foot in the door. And it's funny because when people are like, oh, well, tell me what I need to do to be a writer. I'm like, you just have to love it because that's literally the only thing you need to do and then go write. Like, I literally have no other wisdom for you. Just love it because otherwise you're going to quit. Like, that's what's going to happen.
Don't be result oriented.
It'll rip your soul out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Leave you battered and bruised on the ground.
Yep. And then still like get up and do it the next day
Yes.
again. You got to love it. That's it. It's like the fighter.
So you had COVID shut down some of your projects?
COVID. Oh, yeah. So literally right when they started going. So there's a project called Daddy Issues, that was being cast right before COVID. And also I have another project called Pros and Cons. I had a few things going. And then when COVID hit, the rug got pulled pretty hard.
Same.
And I mean, so many people, right? We lost our everything and then our minds, it felt like. And so I was not in a good place. I'd lost my income overnight. I'd just gone through a breakup a month before. Then my dog got sick and was dying. And I was like, well, I'm tapping out because this is like horrendous. I don't even know. I don't know what is going on. And it was just too much to take. And then the world being in this existential crisis and like physical crisis, it was just a lot for people to take, I think. And then I found this tiny baby bird on the street. I would literally leave my place and go for like one run a day. I was renting a room in a friend's house, like just a room because I'd lost everything and moved out. It was horrendous at the time. And when I look back at it now, I'm like, oh my God, it is literally exactly what I personally needed. I needed the rug to get pulled. I needed to just stay down for a minute. And even Moon leaving was like, oh, the timing, right? You think, oh, that's the worst timing ever, but it was such divine timing.
And Moon is her dog
yeah.
who was sick. And what is it? The crested? No.
She's a spiritual temple dog from Peru. So she was a Peruvian Inca dog.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I rescued her. Like she came to me. Yeah.
Aren't those the most ancient dogs?
Yeah, it's illegal to take them out of the country because they're spiritual temple dogs. Yeah.
Whoa.
Right. I know. You both said that with the exact same expression. That's why I laughed.
Oh, we've like merged at this point. We're just like it can be incredibly inconvenient. We'll go to grab things at the same exact time and bump into each other.
It's
Have the
constant.
same thought at the same time.
good.
I know when she gets her period before she does. I'll yell in the other room, "Babe, did you get your period?" And she'll be like, "No." "Oh shit, yeah, I did. Oh fuck."
I love that.
Fun
so much.
times. Fun times.
Great.
We've merged at this point.
Jesus.
Love it.
All right.
Do
So
you get
back,
your period too?
Exactly, I do.
There
Just
you go.
by resonance, but
Yep.
you know. But anyways,
back to the temple
back
dog.
to your temple dog.
Okay, so Moon was sick at the time that you found Happy.
Yeah, Moon was sick. And so I would just go for like one run a day to clear my head. And 2 blocks from where I was staying, I saw this little thing in the street. And I thought it was a crab that a bird was pecking at. And then when I got closer, I realized it was a baby bird. And I picked him up and I turned around and ran home. I had zero clue what kind of bird it was, what to feed him. Not a clue. And he was injured. So I was like, oh, I think I'm just going to like give him a space to like pass, which I mean, I was like, what in the hell is going on? Like, this is horrendous. Now I have this little thing I'm going to care about in like already, and it's going to die in my space. Like, what is happening? And then that didn't happen. Moon ended up passing 2 weeks after I found Happy.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was that soon.
Yeah, it was really soon after I found Happy, and then I wouldn't bond with him because I wanted to give him the best chance of survival. So I found a rehabber after 1 week. I found a rehabber, and I dropped him off at her door and was like, you know, I'm letting the little guy go. And I cried the entire way home. I was like, what is going on? And then she called me 3 days later and said he's not releasable because his beak was so damaged that he wouldn't survive in the wild. So to this day, I have to trim Happy's beak and like clean it when he gets food stuck on it and stuff. It's like to this day.
You found him being like pecked at by birds,
Yeah.
right? So do you think the birds screwed up its beak, or was
No, I think what an expert said was he probably hurt himself hatching or something. Something happened, and then other sparrows, like the adults, will kill the babies that won't survive. It's almost like an act of compassion, or we don't know, we don't fully understand it yet. But the male sparrow, the adult was pecking him on the head. So so he had like these peck marks. You can see them in videos and pictures when he was a baby.
The strange thing is his broken beak makes him look like he's smiling.
His beak is quite unique. It's really sweet. It is, yeah. And so that's why I named him Happy, because he looked like he's smiling, which is so crazy because birds always look angry. It's amazing what he brought into my life. So I started sharing him on Instagram, and then it was COVID. So I think what happened was people were looking for any kind of hope to hang their hat on. Like I would sit in my room crying, reading messages from around the world of people like, I'm going through chemo and I can't see my family and you made me smile. Like it's going to make me, yeah. I was like, oh my gosh. So I started sharing like your daily dose of happy. What he gave me, aside from giving me the gift of the present moment, because I had to feed him every 20 minutes of every day from sunup to sundown. And so in those moments, I was so present just with him that I got to shake off whatever was going on in my head that was unhealthy and horrendous. That's like the biggest gift you can give any other being, is that gift of the present moment where you feel so present with someone. It's just magic. And then on top of that, he allowed me to share some happiness, which made me feel purposeful. That's where the gift started, with Happy. And then it went so crazy from there, because an executive producer came to me and said, I would like to produce a movie about you and your bird. And I was like, oh, right. I'm a storyteller. Like, it took another human to come to me and like relight the spark that had legitimately gone out in my heart. Like I had lost all sense of purpose and motivation and inspiration. And it took another human, this man, Jim Greenbaum, who's a lovely, lovely man. And he is the reason why I started thinking about making a documentary. Then I was like, who's going to watch a documentary about me and a bird in a room? Because it was COVID. That was pretty much, I was like, that's not going to work. So incorporating other human-animal bonds into this story that became a documentary. And so Happy allowed me to live out my biggest life dream, which is to make a movie that has purpose, and it incorporates animals, which I've been tied to my entire life. From the time I was a child, I used to walk caterpillars around the block. Instead of dolls.
You say that in your dog as a kid, pushing caterpillars in a stroller?
Yeah.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
We would have been friends as kids, for sure.
100%. So people would come in and look in the stroller and be like, oh, look at the baby. Oh, and they'd be like, that's disgusting.
Why is there
Yeah.
bug
You
in
were
there?
saying, look at the baby.
My babies, right? Like,
So that's the beautiful thing about your doc, and it's a magic that Tanya has as well. Like, so we have this weird thing where we only create sort of bonds with cats and dogs, and it's far less common to create bonds with other animals. And you take a lot of different animals that are not normally domesticated and show human and those animal bonds, and truly how sentient and emotionally intelligent these animals, and how them and their human counterparts develop communication with each other. A chicken, a cow, a herd of elephants.
You and Happy,
and Happy.
which I had
Happy.
no idea. I didn't even know that you taught him to like communicate with you.
Yeah.
That was the coolest thing to watch.
So cool. What do you think it is? I asked for the both of you, that people feel this like bond with certain animals, but not all of animal kind. Like, what do you think the disconnect is?
I think people have blinders on and they just go with what everyone else goes with instead of allowing themselves to experience something different. And it's what we do human to human too. We do it constantly, right? We have these parameters and we compartmentalize things. So we compartmentalize kindness, honestly. Like, and so we're kind to certain people, we're kind to certain animals, and then other ones, they're outside of our kindness compartment. And so we don't offer the same grace to those animals or those people. I think it's just the stories we tell ourselves, and
It's definitely
told.
programming in
It is
society because, people grow up with cats and dogs and they see other people with cats and dogs, so they associate it. But if you go to other parts of the world, they eat dogs. They eat cats. Yep. So it's just, in the United States or like in Canada and stuff like that, that's more like they're a pet. It's wild because if you actually take the time to spend time with any being, be it a bee or even a rat or a possum or whatever it may be, if you actually take the time to be with that animal, there is no way that you can't see that they are sentient beings. That, first of all, if they're from the wild, they're in survival mode. So they're going to be hissing at you or getting scared because they're assuming that you're a threat because you're bigger than them, right? An insect, anything like that. Imagine a spider. Like, people are afraid of spiders, but a spider is so tiny. Imagine if we saw something that was as big as a human compared to a spider, like in front of us, we'd be horrified. If we could just like get our attention to see these animals and these other beings on our planet as just like us, they want to survive. They have families. They have bonds with other beings. They love nature. They have to eat and drink and all this stuff. We're literally the exact same, just in different vessels. And I think that's what your movie does so well, is you really show how we're viewing things incorrectly. And we're at a time of great change in our world. And hopefully this could also be a part of that. And was that part of what your documentary was trying to do? Because that's what I got from it.
I mean, I think that's just an all-encompassing message that I have, and that ended up coming through. Because what was really interesting about making a documentary is that I don't have control of the narrative and the script like I do when I write a script. And so the writing happens in the editing bay, which it was my first time making a documentary, and everything is flipped. So the narrative kind of unfolds. It shows itself throughout each individual story, but it was within making the movie that I realized the message that I wanted to tell, and that's where the end came from, and the conclusion of how it's bigger than that. It's bigger than just like these unique bonds that we're seeing in the movie. It's like it's a much bigger theme that goes along with the massive shift that we're going through in the world. So that showed itself. And it was interesting because I was putting pressure on myself to know the story and know what I'm saying. And then as soon as I took the pressure off, the story like unfolded, the bigness of it, which was really fascinating because it's so different than writing like a narrative, just a scripted feature.
Yeah.
It's very different.
Well, I'd say, because I totally resonate with that. Obviously, I'm a screenwriter too. It really is, even as a writer, a co-creative process with the universe, whatever it is. And when I first used to start as a writer, it was so much more difficult because I thought I had to know everything. Yeah. And now there's a little bit more of like a finding it. Like I don't need to know everything. And it came from dealing with essentially what you're talking about, where being on projects where you're sort of finding it in post and all of a sudden you're surprised.
Yeah.
And you're almost like the project sort of teaching you something.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's it. I never would have guessed that, though. It seems so perfectly conceived, your documentary.
It's interesting because as a writer, I know the beats that a story needs to hit. I'm a Virgo, so I'm like, oh my gosh, let's do formatting, right? So I'm like, so I have these beats and I know where they need to hit. I know the exact place in a story. And the doc is 74 minutes. We could have added another story, but I mean, the entire documentary is made on donations. Not one investor. It was all donations.
That's
so
amazing.
We were very limited in what we could and couldn't do. And adding another story, we didn't have the funding for it. So it's where it's at right now, and it plays beautifully. But I definitely, those beats in the story, that was like that, the Dark Night of the Soul beat. The heartbeat, that took me time to figure out what that was going to be and how we were going to bring people into that space of, well, if we lose everything, like we lose it all, then what?
What do you mean when you say lose everything?
I mean, if we don't start listening to the world around us, we're in big trouble. We're already in trouble. So I think that listening to the world around us, which is listening to the animals, the water, the earth, the air, the sea, how indigenous people used to live. They used to live with the land. They understood the land. They took the time to understand the wind and the songs and the birds and the animals. And we just don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
We're killing everything by not listening. Just taking a moment and like listening.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're having this conversation, and Tanya, the words you used were sort of like, they're just like us, like seeing the humanity in these other animals and insects, which both of you are so amazing at. I mean, Tanya literally does like macro photography for insects.
So do I.
And of course. Of course. And it's funny, she did it to me, and I'm someone that doesn't even kill bugs, and I see her do it to other people, and what she likes to focus on is, quote, their tiny little face. And yeah. And it's funny because I did not even see that they had a face, but she does the photography in a way that I can see their face. And once you see their face, you can't unsee their face. And it's funny. I mean, we even talked about this one episode. The studio president, Tony, he's afraid of spiders. And I've seen her do it to so many people with arachnophobia. It's just like she hears, oh, you're arachnophobic? Let me show you jumping spiders with tiny little raindrop hats. And she'll just start scrolling through. And then they'll be like, okay. And she'll just.
Them so much.
Yeah.
But so we're speaking on this on a level of essentially seeing for lack of a better term, the humanity in animals. But across all cultures, in many ancient wisdoms, we were talking about this earlier, whether it's shamanism or totemism or Hinduism or Buddhism, there's a belief system that animals are actually, for lack of a better term, greater than us. They are more in line with the spirit world. The Aboriginals, I was just telling you this, they believe that animals created this world. We experience so many animal symbolism in ceremony that we've come to believe they are like messengers from the other side.
They're angels.
They're angels.
Straight up.
So it's, we're seeing the humanity in them, but do you feel that there's another level to this, that they have more to teach us, that if we would just learn how to listen to them?
Absolutely. Oh, 100%. And like I've had my own experiences with things and with
Tell
Moon.
us, what's
with
the things?
Moon.
There's subtext there.
There's subtext there. During the pandemic, because Moon ended up passing 2 weeks after I found Happy, and I was completely distraught, and I felt bad even connecting with Happy because Moon was my heart and soul, right? So I felt guilty, like connecting with Happy, and I would like sometimes just call him Birdie. Like I think in the film one time I say like, okay, Birdie, because I'm like trying not to like connect with him. It was like I felt
I saw
bad.
that. Yeah.
And then about 2 weeks after Moon passed, I was sitting in the hot tub in the backyard where I was renting a room. It was with my best friends, one of my best friends, Michael. And we were both in the hot tub talking to my friend Dakota, who's my very first friend in Los Angeles. And she was outside of the hot tub sitting on like even ground. And I'm looking up at her talking, and behind her is like the yard. All of a sudden it's like dusk, so it was getting dark. And out of the shadows, and Moon had passed 2 weeks prior, I see Moon, and she appears and she jumps 3 times. And she had this hop that she used to do, like a baby deer. Ding. Boinks, boink. She did it 3 times and then disappeared into the shadows again. And I was like completely flabbergasted. And I'm sitting there. And the thing is, I was so sad and distraught at the time. My initial reaction was, oh my God, I've lost everything and I'm losing my fucking mind. And I was like, this is horrendous. And then Michael, who's standing behind me, goes, please tell me you saw that.
Oh my God, so he saw it too.
Yeah. And I look at Michael, I'm like, what? He goes, did you just see Moon? And I was like, dude, like, come on. Because I'm so sure she knew that I wouldn't trust what I was seeing at that point. That it was insane. An insane moment like of my life that I will absolutely never forget. And there are things that people can try and tell me don't exist, and I will just turn away from them because I know what I've seen and I know what I've felt.
So beautiful.
Whoa.
Also,
Whoa.
sorry, I'm crying. Thanks.
Yeah, this
That's where we're going.
yeah.
I truly believe that that animals or spirits in general, right, when our loved ones pass in any shape or form that they pass, they can like manipulate this world and be able to give us a sign. And like exactly like you said, knowing that if it was just you, you would be like, oh, well, I'm losing my mind. Oh God, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Or something. So the fact that your friend Michael saw that as well was definitely her being like, okay, you guys both need to see this right now. So you know that this is real. That is absolutely incredible.
It was pretty wild. And it gave me the permission to like bond with Happy. And I'm so sure Moon brought me Happy. Like she knew I was not okay. And she was like, oh, I'm going to like leave my mom with a little something, like a little happiness on your shoulder. You know, it's like that. And literally she left me a little Happy on my shoulder.
And somebody that you needed to take care of, you know, and had to put so much energy into. And so it's like during the pandemic, you're like, oh my God, the relationship, the job, the love of my life, my dog is gone. Like all these things. It's like now you have something that you have to do. It forces you out of bed in the morning. It forces you to do something constantly, which is so beautiful. And I do believe you that Moon brought you Happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
You hear a lot of stories about this, about, obviously we don't really know how this world works, but, you'll hear a lot about people waiting to die or to cross over until they know they're either their loved one is in a good hands. Yep. A lot of people will explain even phenomenon with ghosts that's their loved ones. They're not fully ready to move on until they make sure all their people are good. It's 100%. Like, and that's not the first kind of story we've heard like that. And we have our own experiences. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, her grandma just passed, and we had it was a little different, but it was. I mean, you can tell it, Tanya, if you want.
What, the perfume?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just, this was like so wild. So when my grandma passed, she wore White Diamonds perfume.
Yeah.
But after she had passed, me and my cousins, we sprayed her with the White Diamonds perfume to be like, all right, grandma, go to the afterlife and like smell like, smell like white diamonds, go have fun. And a couple of days later, Cody and I, we were like getting food and we came back home, and our front door, there was just this giant cloud of White Diamonds perfume, like right in front of us. And I was running around everywhere trying to see if it smelled like it anywhere else. And it didn't smell like it anywhere else. None of our neighbors were home. And we were like, oh my God, it was grandma coming to just be like, hey, I'm okay. And it was so strong. The smell was so strong. And I'd never experienced anything like that before. And I know scent is something that definitely, when loved ones pass, that's a pretty normal thing that happens. Somebody smells like cigars or something like that,
Yeah.
But so something that you had mentioned, that when you were a kid, you were very much into animals. I was exactly the same. Like I'm an only child, so the animals were my siblings.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I
My
totally
sister's
get that.
15 years older and moved out when I was 3. So yeah, it was, yeah.
So same exact thing. So you're basically like an only child when you're
Yeah. And I'd
Okay.
play outside, all these games I would play outside, like The Wizard of Oz. I mean, I still remember them. Yeah, it's insane. Like by myself. Like that weird kid playing with caterpillar. I had a caterpillar hospital.
You had a caterpillar hospital?
Yeah. I used to pick up the ones that were injured and try and heal them. Yeah, it was a whole
Oh,
thing.
that's amazing.
When we go to Belize, there's a pool and all these bugs fall in the pool. So every morning I go out and play bug rescue and
It's
like
called
pull
bug
them
rescue.
out, and then it's
not
called bug
play.
rescue.
She's rescuing the bugs and putting them in a triage unit.
But then there's a little thing because I want to keep them from the birds from eating them. So we
Right.
have the bug hospital. So
Perfection.
I totally get it, Maria.
Perfection. Yeah. I pick bees out of the pool all the time. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, hello. Yeah.
in your doc, you were literally saying things that come out of her mouth all the time, quote unquote, like verbatim.
I love it.
One of the things that was fascinating to me about Happy is that he's viewed sparrows are invasive species. And when something is an invasive species, there's no greater green light and excuse for people who want to kill that animal. They're like, it's cool. Like even people who are animal rights activists will be like, oh, they're an invasive species. Okay, hunters, like go ahead,
Yeah.
So like, what do you think when it comes to the perspective or the cultural program about if it's an invasive species, you can kill them, no problem. They're harmful to the environment.
I find it really arrogant. I find humans arrogant as a species for numerous reasons. I mean, one of the biggest ones is that we assume, or it has been assumed. I love science. I find science really cool. I was a biology major, but one of the biggest disservices science has done to this planet is saying that animals aren't sentient, and it's just because they don't emote and express the way we do. And so I have people come on Happy's page and tell me that they're going to kill house sparrows. They do this like with a complete disregard to Happy being a pet, not doing any damage. He lives inside. He's not having babies and I'm letting them out, like whatever, like with a complete disregard. And I just find humans so arrogant. We brought sparrows here. We brought them here in 18 something to eradicate a certain pest in the trees in New York.
Oh, we brought
them here purposely.
Sounds
and then,
about
and
Sounds
now
about
we're,
right.
Yeah.
that's the thing. I just find we're humans as a species so incredibly arrogant. And now it's like, now kill all the sparrows. I'm like, but we brought them here. Like, you want to do things like that, then figure it out in a kind way. You don't, and you're not going to kill all the house sparrows. Like, that's just not going to happen. If you kill a house sparrows, you're going to kill all the songbirds, because what kills house sparrows kills all the songbirds. So it's a very strange mentality that humans have, where we break it and then we break it more. It's like there's no,
Yeah.
we break the ecosystems and then we think that we need to just pull the one thing out that we brought in, but that's not going to fix the problem.
Yeah.
At all.
And we were talking about this earlier, but humans are kind of an invasive species by definition. We destroy the environment. We don't live in harmony. We overpopulate. We are technically, especially if you think from a colonial perspective, there's a lot of people that were not native to the land. The entire concept of an invasive species is a social construct, and it's the thing that we think we know better than nature, and we have to intervene when our intervention has single-handedly destroyed the environment at an unprecedented level and way. We don't need to be more involved. I think it's being less involved with how we're intervening in nature.
And animals, when they're left alone, our environment works perfectly.
Yeah.
If humans were just kind of like left the planet or backed off completely, nature would be exactly in perfect harmony because that's how it works. So there's no such thing as an invasive species. It figures itself out.
Yeah.
Right. So first of all, I do believe that animals are here to teach us. I believe that they are some sort of like angelic spirit, because if you look at them, they're just in their primal way. It's just even watching Happy is this tiny sparrow, but you're watching all this stuff. He's like going through mating season. He's making your little nest and like all this stuff. It's so funny to watch. But even if you go back to yoga, downward dog, right? They're literally poses that animals do to move energy through their body. It means a human is watching an animal and learning from them because they know how to be in tune with everything around them. And we have lost that. And it's
Same
the
with
same
Tai
thing.
Chi. Same with Tai Chi.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with ducks or birds, right? They get in a fight. And then what do? As soon as they leave, they shake it off.
Yeah.
Dogs shake things off when they're trying to get the energy off them. We can learn so much from animals if we just pay attention.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I feel like that's what
Definitely.
your documentary also points out too.
There's one thing that's not in the documentary. If Happy hears me crying, he will wake, even at night when he's in his little pineapple sleeping, I will hear him. Beep. Yeah, if he knows when I'm sad. It's crazy.
Whoa.
It's crazy.
Well, it's that thing where you see people that have like cameras in their house. They'll start to realize that no matter what time they come home, their animals know before. Like the dog and the cat, they'll go wait by the door. There's definitely something else happening. I have a very far out theory, and it's because we've had like many ceremonies where we're having sort of this interface with the divine, and they're coming through animalistically, which, as we mentioned earlier, is known as totemism or animism. And my theory is that whatever like archetype, if there are deities that they project into this world through animals and insect kind, and and seemingly like less than us, and it's for us to work out our relationship with the rest of the cosmos through these animals and insects. I know that might sound so crazy, and I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying I think about it sometimes. It's because we'll have an example of an experience. We did a ceremony, and it's this very like praying mantis thing, and then we'll come out of the ceremony and go to bed, and there's a praying mantis on the screen, and you're just like, what is this? Like, what is this world? And
Love it.
how is it that there's all this animalistic symbolism throughout all of history? And it's like, what is this? It just seems like there's a missing piece, and it has to do with our place in the animal kingdom and how we've separated ourselves from them. It just seems that this is very much the path where, like, if we're gonna heal the world and fix this place, like it starts with our relationships with animal and insect kind, I should say.
Yeah. Okay, so online they talk about the cat distribution system. How a cat just I do. It's when you're just like doing your normal day, and then all of a sudden a kitten appears, and then that's your cat. And the world, the universe has given you a cat now, and that is now your cat. The cat distribution service. So something that with your documentary, which is really beautiful, which brings us back to animals being angelic healing beings, right? That are here to, first of all, help us receive unconditional love in a safe way, allow us to give unconditional love in a safe way where we're not going to be hurt, right? And they allow us so much growth and so much love and expansion that we can't really get with other humans. It's hard. And in your documentary, Finding Happy, you have all these beautiful stories about people who were in really bad times in their life. And then all of a sudden, this animal shows up that needs them. And then they create a bond through both needing each other, which shapes their entire view of animals as a whole and changes their life on a deep level. Have you noticed this? Because I'm sure you get comments all the time from people having these relationships with animals. Is this something that you hear of often?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I feel like it's much more prevalent than is even out there. Than I feel like people have these experiences and they know how big it is, But then I feel like sometimes people are almost embarrassed to share the experiences. Like I have zero qualms or embarrassment about sharing connections with animals. It's something that's been a part of my life since I can remember. And so for me, I'm like, hey, I used to walk caterpillars around the block in a stroller. So for me, sharing a sparrow is like, wow, this is super cool. Yeah. And I know people are going to think I'm weird.
This is progress. This is less weird than the caterpillar stroller.
Less weird than the caterpillars. Totally less weird. But it is funny because like I've had comments on Happy's page where people are just like, they'll be like, oh, wow. So like, just like not nice comments. Right. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, like what place in your brain do you have to be to not see like the joy and the love and the happiness? But I do feel like people sometimes are shy to share their stories because they feel weird or different. Because it's like, oh, this pelican, I had this weird experience with a pelican. It's super cool. But then other people are like, that's weird. I'm like, and meanwhile, people like us think it's just we see the magic in it. Right. We see the presence in it. We see the bigness of it.
Yeah.
Right.
We recently just our neighbor reached out to me and was like, there's a baby possum that got caught in a rat trap. And so of course I'm just like, just running around, no idea where I'm going. Cody's chasing after me. We don't know where we're going. We find this like possum. He's in a poor guy was like in a little
Alfredo
like dustpan.
Is his name.
Cody named him Alfredo. And so we kept him and it was the same thing. There were, because it's really hard to find animal rescue places. I used to do animal rescue my entire, during high school. I worked for Native Animal Rescue, was on call 24/7. I did marine mammal rescue, and I trained dogs at the SPCA. Oh my gosh. So I get you, girl.
Yes.
We love animals.
See? Yeah.
Birds of a feather, you too.
And so this animal, this little Alfredo, he was just like for the week that we had him, we watched him like grow up and heal, and he let us pick him up. He was still like
he was a wounded mush at first and super cute. We're like, we're helping this thing, and then about 3-4 days in, it started to just feel like we had a wild animal in our bathroom,
which is good. That means he was healing.
And we were like, all right, I think it's time to reintroduce him to the wild.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
He lived like a king though for 3 days. Tiny Alfredo.
Something I noticed with Alfredo is that I post about him, and then people wanted to help. So I'd have friends. You even reached out. I had like other friends that were like, oh, let me see if I can find somebody, because I couldn't find any animal rescue place that would take him. Like everybody's like, oh, we're too full. We're not taking anybody at this time. And it's like, okay, I guess we're going to do our best. It was the same situation with Happy. It's like, I guess we're going to figure this out. Thank God for ChatGPT to tell me what possums eat and how to take care of a baby possum with an injured hand. But something that I've noticed is that, because I always felt a little odd about sharing my relationships with like animals or insects, but then the bonds that I would, or the way I would feel around them was so strong that I was like, I need to share this with other people, because maybe they don't even realize that they can have this relationship with a bee that they find on the side of the road. And maybe they don't realize that they can watch it like eat and have like a different connection to it. They can help heal something instead of destroy something. And I've been watching over the years of sharing this stuff, watching the people around me start to feel comfortable sharing their interactions with other animals and insects. And my friend Angie in New York is like taking care of 2 pigeons that are like on her little balcony. And, we have friends that take care of, they'll see a bug and they'll be like, tag me and somebody be like, oh, I found this little bug and we're my little friend. And I'm like, oh my God, we're little friends. This is great. We're moving up. We're moving up.
It's a consciousness. There's a cultural consciousness for humans, and then there is like an animal and insect consciousness. And what you are doing is merging that consciousness, and even what she's talking about, what she does, but what she does, and what you're doing is you're helping people move into that. And something I can speak to a little bit about some of the insults and the people who are closed off to it is that when you have to learn about these things, you then have to become responsible for this truth. With this knowledge comes great responsibility. When you realize that, animals are sentient and they're highly emotional, and there's no difference between the consciousness behind a dog or a possum or a chicken or a cow or a butterfly. It's all the same consciousness, just uniquely expressing itself through their own unique experience, which just makes it even more special and beautiful, not different. We should other it. But I will say, I grew up from New York. I've never spoken about this, by the way, ever publicly. And after watching your doc, I was like grieving for like 15 minutes. A lot came up for me. Being a masculine culture, eating meat and hunting and the dominance over animals is baked into the masculine identity. I was just like you two as a kid. I had my caterpillar stroller. It was not a stroller, but I would collect them and then, realize I had killed all them, but still it was with love. And I wanted to be the youngest zoologist, but I literally
youngest
specifically. I got it bullied out of me. I moved to a new school and they would all sing Bill Nye the Science Guy at me. And eventually I completely cut that part out. When I got into my 20s, I was an environmental activist and I started learning that the number one cause of climate change is animal agriculture. So I said, I'm doing all this like recycling and like not drinking out of a plastic bottle, but that is a drop of water in the bucket compared to the damage from me eating animal products. So I also did some more research, read a book called China Study. It's the biggest study on populations and their overall life expectancy. And the China Study found that essentially people who ate a vegetarian and vegan diet, all those areas were like lived a longer life, right? I had opened Pandora's box. I had stared into the shadow of my personal relationship with animals. And I was like, okay, I have to stop eating meat. So this was 10 years ago. I never ate meat ever again. I've never spoken publicly about it. I go to restaurants and I whisper to the waiter because I don't want to make everyone feel uncomfortable. I was so aware that there's this perspective on people that don't eat meat, like vegans and vegetarianisms, that they're like very pushy with their ideology and they want to guilt you and make you feel bad and like push their agenda, almost like a cultiness about it. So I made sure I never wanted to be that. It's this very traumatic thing because all of a sudden you're sort of outcasted. We have to eat before parties or we'll sometimes have to eat before we go out to dinner. It's made me hate going to dinner in general because I often can't eat and make everyone uncomfortable. It's the same conversation. Do you have any, I say plant-based, I even say vegan options now, and because I feel awkward. And then they all ask the same questions, and because they just ordered chicken and a burger and a steak, I'm not going to sit here and be like, and go into it. And I sort of like poo-poo and brush it off, and I don't express like my true feelings about it. When the truth is what started as environmentalism and, it turned into a spiritual thing. It turned into, and anyone that's a part of any movement, it could be environmentalism or climate change, like we just mentioned, or it could be, animal rights and veganism or whatever we're talking about. It starts this like groundswell underground thing, and then it becomes politicized and you experience in real time this backlash. We literally have a billboard outside of our apartment complex that says, I hate vegans.com.
Like sue vegans or something like that.
I've seen that.
Yeah, I don't have no idea what
crazy.
It's about, but so strange.
And we sit there, we never talk about it. I've never spoken publicly. And I'd watch the swell of people, because now it's been politicized. It's become like this sort of right-wing thing. They're trying to take away our food and make us eat bugs. And then it's become, right, it's a weird thing to witness, to see the politicization of it. But one of the things that's happened is I've had to listen to people say, veganism is bad for you. You can't be healthy and all this stuff. There's not a lot of iron. You can't get enough protein, all this stuff, right? And
tell him the Arnold Schwarzenegger story.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you the story, but just to finish this point, because that is a really funny story.
Yes.
But one of the things that happened for me is I had to say to myself, what if this is not fully healthy for me? What if it's taking away an ounce of my power? What if it's making me 10% less efficient? And then the question and answer was, would you never kill again and give up 10% of your power, 20% of your power, 25%, which I don't believe is true, and the science doesn't back that up. But the answer for me was yes. I will give up my power over and over and over and over again to not kill, and people will say to me, oh, you have an animal, you have this, or you feed your animal meat. Well, they don't have a choice. They eat what they eat.
Right.
I have a choice. Yeah. I can choose, and that's the difference, is I can choose what I want to eat. And, I love that you didn't push any of that. You didn't make your doc about it. You focused it on the love, but it brought up it makes me emotional now. The fact that I love animals and I don't speak up for them because I don't want to make people uncomfortable, and I don't want to push people away from loving animals and changing their relationship with all of animal and insect kind by them thinking like, oh, I'm another culty person pushing this belief. And I've been silent. This is the first time I've spoken. And I just want to say thank you for giving me the courage to speak up for the first time. I feel immense shame around not speaking up. And I just had to say something because you did change my life with this documentary. I don't think I ever would have spoken up about this. And I do think we have to do something. And, people can do whatever they want, but at least, being proud of their relationships with animals, because this is speciesism, which is just another form of tribalism, racism, sexism. It's just a different expression of it. It's people like you and women like you that are normalizing these relationships, these trans-specious relationships. So I just wanted to thank you, and I just had to come out of the vegetarian closet.
That's so good. The vegetarian
Or
closet.
veganism closet. See, I didn't even say the V word.
Yeah, you didn't even say the V word.
I didn't even say it. Yeah, sorry for that rant.
No, that's great. I mean, the whole thing with storytelling, and that's why it's like when we were talking before we were recording and you were like, well, what do you want to be known as? Like, I'm like, well, filmmaker, storyteller, like a storyteller with purpose. I have no interest in directing or writing movies that don't have some kind of meaning to them.
Same.
Like, I just have no interest. And so it's a storytelling with a purpose. So I don't want to go make somebody's, really shitty script. And sorry for saying that, but there's so many shitty fucking movies out there. And I'm like, how do these keep getting made?
Yeah,
I feel the same
shitty.
way.
And I'm like, there's a place for everything, right? Where we want to watch and zone out and do all that. There's a place for all that. But I just have no interest in making those, right?
I agree. Yeah. This is a central thing we talk about on here, that Hollywood essentially panders to just the lower faculties, the violence, the sex, and all of that. So if you want to be an artist who's an activist artist, someone that's making content to evolve the cultural consciousness towards a better world, that's not commercial enough for the green light committee at Warner Brothers. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's not. And it's funny because we have Gerard Butler's a good friend of mine. I played his wife in a movie years ago. I knew him before I played. Like, he's a super, super lovely human. He's our biggest donor outside of our EPs on Finding Happy.
Wow.
And I messaged him because I was like, hey, Jer, like, you're in my documentary. Just you have like a cameo kind of, because that clip of me and him when we're in the movie. And so he's like, oh, can I watch it? And his message back to me after he watched it was, this is beautiful, necessary, inspiring. It made me cry on more than 3 occasions and really made me think about my life. And as a storyteller, as a storyteller with purpose, that's like magic.
That's all you can ask for.
It's all you can ask for. You just want to hear people go, hey, it made me think. It changed. It opened my heart. It made me, like, even Got Daddy Issues is a female-driven comedy. And you think, oh, it's Bridesmaids meets Sex in the City with a ton of heart.
That's great.
And a ton of messaging about how fathers affect their daughters and how it affects us in our dating lives and how we treat the men, women, whoever we're dating, how that manifests.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of messaging in it. But there's big laughs. And so there's storytelling with a purpose can be a thriller, a comedy. It doesn't matter. There's messages in these movies and these stories that we put out there. And you're so right when you say, like, Hollywood is just pushing out this shit. Like, I'm worried about finding a home because it's a hopeful, happy message that literally just is meant to, like, drop you to your knees, but bring you up and leave you hopeful. And that's not a lot of what we see out there. So it's an interesting space to navigate with wanting to tell stories with purpose and still be able to, like, put food on your table, like really yummy plants on your table.
Focusing on the love, really yummy plants. Yeah, you're inspiring people to speak, inspiring me right now to speak out about it, because I could be living a certain way and I used to think that was enough and I'd say I'll live by example, but not to speak out. And you're doing it in the right way. You're speaking out, singing a song of love, about this. You're not attacking people. And it's that you and me were just talking about this because it's a great irony that this show is starting to go viral on TikTok, and people will have negative comments, and we're just like, we laugh at each other. We go, fools, don't you know you're feeding our
the
algorithm?
Oh, for sure.
Keep the hateful comments
Yes,
coming.
keep them, please.
And
We
then
love
other
it.
people-
Thank you.
Oh yeah, people
Give
do
us
that
the
on Happy's
hate.
page, and then they
they
get
fight,
attacked.
yes.
Oh yeah, and I'm like, well, now the bird lovers are coming at you. You're in trouble.
But that's the thing
Yeah,
is,
the comment section takes care of itself.
where your mind goes, your energy goes, and so it's so funny. And look, they're using hate, and their energy is flowing to us, and they're feeding something they hate because you're focusing on love and liberation and unification. You're not focusing on the hate. It's healing in a truly transcendent way. It's,
Also, something in your doc, the man who with the cow.
Oh yeah.
So
I
he
love
was
him.
talking about
Right.
how he
Ryan and Jenna.
he would hold up like signs, right, for animal rights, and he would have these men get out of the car, and one guy like pretended he was going to shoot him, and another one
Someone hit
like
him.
tried to hit him, whatever. And the thing that's so wild about that is like people like, oh, I'm just like, fuck you guys or whatever. But like what's actually happening is it's forcing those people that are getting angry are having to face themselves, knowing that they know that these animals are sentient and feel pain and all this stuff. And they're upset that it's being put in their face, and they have to think about it. And they're like, how dare you make me feel things that I don't want to think about right now?
yeah.
And that's what it all comes down to.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then when Dave shifted his perspective, Ryan shifted his perspective, it's amazing how he just became a happier person too. He focused, instead of focusing, because he was putting himself in situations that were angry. And it's interesting because all those people in the documentary, they had different stories. I had to choose what storyline, like what was going to make an impact. And for me, with Ryan and Jenna's story, that was the impact. It's how it made him a happier person.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful because he leaned into the love of it all and was like, he didn't even want to be holding the signs up anymore. And then he ends up having a bigger outreach because his story goes viral and his story. So you focus on the love, and it has a big impact.
100%. That's the thing is that, anytime you tell somebody what they need to believe, they're going to have pushback.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
how dare you tell me or push your beliefs on me or whatever, no matter what it is, right? If it's religion, if it's what you're eating, whatever it may be. So the best way to do it is to show the love and allow them to feel into that, because the walls don't come up when you do
Yeah.
that. It allows you to like feel into it. If you see a cow jumping around in a field, it's not triggering to you in the way of somebody holding up a sign or something like that. So
Right.
your documentary does that perfectly.
Yeah. Love is the feeling of connection. It's not a mental idea. So it's like the love.
Right.
So, and we're talking about reconnecting. I mean, the central thesis of every person we'll have on the show, every shamanic teacher, is like sort of the common denominator of disease is a disconnection from themselves, from spirit, from community. Even what you're talking about, which we live that life too as a filmmaker in Hollywood, it is a very isolationist, for lack of a better term, almost a selfish journey. And it's very self-involved, because as an artist, it's a lot of isolation. Once you live that life, if I go in a time machine, I smack myself in the face, I'd say, focus on what kind of life you want to live, like the environment you want to be in, not some idea of what you want to, who you want to become. But the point is it can be a very isolated existence, and then these animals can reconnect us to the universe, to the greater whole of the world, to nature, to the present moment. It truly is the best medicine. Tanya, we want to make healing centers. At the end of this is our main goal, is to make medicine centers.
End goal.
Love.
And Tanya's always, since the day I met her, had this program. It's very well developed, and the David Lynch Foundation was getting behind it many years ago, and it was taking veterans with PTSD and putting them with animals. Yeah, do you want to tell?
Animals that had been rescued, like rescue animals. So both of them are dealing with trauma. And so when you have two beings coexisting, both dealing with trauma, but they need each other. And having somebody that just came from war that has PTSD helping out an animal who's had trauma from, being mistreated or abused or whatever it may be, earning the trust of the animal, feeding them, taking care of them, all of this stuff actually heals both parties involved. So
But that's your doc, actually, now that you say that.
Zach does that. with his prison, he brings the dogs into prison and they heal each other, and they've adopted, I can't remember how many, like over 1,000 dogs and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's Zach's story. He was in full stage liver disease. Like he was, his story is crazy wild.
His story's wild.
You and Happy were both experiencing a trauma, and so was Honk the Goose.
Yep.
Honk the Goose.
Honk.
I just said Honk the Goose. Honk the Goose and her partner, they had a trauma. They all have, even the two dogs with no legs.
Yep.
Everybody. That's why they were.
Yeah.
That's why we were talking about them being angels and stuff. Yeah.
It's so weird. I wonder if that's why, like, as a people, we're experiencing such turmoil and chaos now. Almost like it's like through our pain, we come back together and we're sort of getting broken down. You know, I don't know. I mean, it's truly fascinating.
There's a different kind of connection when you choose, because it's a choice. When you choose to connect with an animal, like Cheryl's story is a great example of that, because Honk was trying to connect and communicate with people in the park. But Cheryl stopped and listened. She took the time to stop and listen to him. And then he was like, and he bonded with her. And as soon as she goes to that pond, he would run to her. He would, I mean, from across the pond, he would swim to her. And so they're communicating with us. We're not listening. We are genuinely so disconnected and tapped out that we're not listening. And it literally just comes down that people are like, how did you train your sparrow? I'm like, he's not trained. I just listen to him. And I use what he does naturally to figure out a way to communicate with him. And that's all we have to do. It's not like, there was no rule book on how to train a sparrow. I should write one. It would be a very existential book on how to train a sparrow.
You'd be like, listen. It'd be one page long. Listen to it.
It would be just all existentialism. It'll be like, what? How do I train my sparrow? It's like, you didn't get it then. Yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. I'm so in tune and dialed in with Happy. Man, I have a really crazy story about a rattlesnake. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Of course you do, right?
Yeah.
I just ask you too if you want to hear a story about a rattlesnake.
Yes,
We
please.
do.
My friend Dakota, who I mentioned, who was there when I saw Moon. So I was, when I first moved to LA, it's within my first year of being here. I'm from Canada. I'm going to preface it by saying that, where we do not have rattlesnake. There's no venomous snakes where I live. I'm at Runyon. And and actually Gerard Butler comes back into this. We had his dog with us that day. We were walking, super random, his dog Lolita. We were walking Lolita. I had Moon. I had another dog named Kala, another hairless Peruvian Inca, and Dakota's dog. So we had these dogs with us, and we were walking, coming down Runyon on the main path, and I see a snake. And I was like, oh, I don't want one of the dogs to like hurt the snake. So I pick it up by the belly, not thinking anything. And I literally put it on my other arm and let it wrap itself. And I was like, wow, this snake feels so different than any snake I've ever held, right? And Dakota's in front of me, and she turns around and looks at me, and she just went, and literally like all the air just came like right out of her. And I was like, and then I realized, like, I saw her, and then I looked down, I'm like, diamonds. And I was like, oh my God, what an idiot. Like, I just didn't even think. And it's just on my arm. And I think the rattlesnake was so stunned that I picked it up, and it was just like staring at me. It never tried to bite. It never rattled its rattle. Didn't. And this other girl's walking up, and she sees me holding this rattlesnake on my arm, and she screamed. I'm like, please don't do that right now.
Yeah.
That's
not helping.
the time.
Not
You're
helping.
like, it's feeling your energy though.
Like,
it knows you weren't going to hurt it. It's just like if there's a dog that normally bites, but it's about to get hurt and you pick it up, it's not going to bite you because it feels the energy. They're so good at reading it. They know when you're trying to help or you're not going to attack them.
It was just
That
stunned.
is wild.
Yeah, and I just flicked it off the edge. I was like, just give me a second. And I just like shunk, and it like, it never tried to bite. It never even rattled its rattle.
Whoa. See, it's like that. It's like that with bees too. Like, she's always helping bees, and people are all so scared. And she's like, they're not gonna hurt you.
No.
You're not their predator.
They don't want their intestines ripped out.
They really
they
don't.
literally don't. So they're not going to sting you unless it really, really needs to.
My dad's the same way. He has like a salt gun that he leaves the doors open, right? And then bees and flies come in, and he shoots them. Like, I'm like, they're not gonna hurt you if they're
With a
coming.
salt gun?
He's got like this
What's
gun.
a salt gun?
You like buy it on
shoots
Amazon,
salt out, so
and
it
shoots.
just kills
it looks
them with
like
tiny
so
little
much
salt
fun.
bullets.
It's if I did not practice pacifism, I would. It looks like a great time, but I'm always like, why are you? But look, this goes back to like the consciousness of especially masculine. In the modern man. I was like, that killing animals and fishing and hunting and like that was part of the culture. I'll tell that story you wanted me to tell.
Please,
okay.
please
So
tell the story.
this is a great, this encapsulates everything. So my dad is a big meat eater. Okay. I was raised, it was instilled in me. It was a part of our identity and it was part of masculinity. My dad's a musician. Do you know who my dad is? His name's Dee Snider. He's the lead
Twisted
singer of a
Sister.
band called Twisted Sister.
Well, I know Twisted Sister.
That's his dad.
So yeah, I came out of his balls. There's
Come on.
so his
That's cool.
His album is called Stay Hungry, and it's him, and he has this massive bone, like I don't know what it is, right? So this is like my father, and he's a successful rock star. So to me, I'm a little kid, like this is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
Okay. This is what it means, right? So the program was deep. Okay. So I didn't get to eat a plant-based diet easily. I came kicking and screaming. That album, Stay Hungry, is named after an Arnold Schwarzenegger's documentary called Stay Hungry. It's about weight training. So Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of my dad's heroes. So about a couple years ago. Oh yeah. So she's laughing. She knows this is going. So a couple of years ago, we get invited to the Arnold Classic. So the Arnold Classic is,
I know. I did bodybuilding for a bit.
You did bodybuilding?
I did like 2 or 3 competitions. Yeah.
Oh,
So I know. Yeah.
what's up? That's
Yeah.
so cool.
For fun. But
Okay, wasn't it? What was the Arnold Classic used to be called? Mr. Saturn or something?
I don't know.
He
But I
essentially-
definitely know the Arnold Classic.
It used to be the biggest bodybuilding competition. Arnold won it multiple times, and then when he pretty much aged out of being competitive, just bought the whole thing so nobody could ever beat it and named it the Arnold Classic, right?
Amazing.
Okay, so a couple years ago, we get invited to go to the Arnold Classic, and it's me and my parents, and we're part of Arnold's a gang, right? And he's in the government. He still has Secret Service, and there's like 10 of us. It's like Logan Paul. It's a bunch of random people. It's random. I'll spare the name dropping, but we spent the weekend with him. And the first night, we have a whole floor of a hotel like lobby. There's a giant table and all this food, and we're surrounded by Secret Service, and there's about 15 of us. It's all meat. So I'm sitting there with my dad, who's sort of ashamed of my veganism. Like, he would never communicate that to me, but
They also go out of their way to make sure that there's always vegan options at every restaurant. That's nice.
He always takes us to vegan restaurants. He always eats this diet, and he's so sweet, even though he doesn't like it or get it. But whenever I get sick, he does text me, eat meat, and does blame it on that. And which of course, now I can't tell my dad when I'm not feeling well because I feel like he's going to judge me for that, but that's neither here nor there. So we're sitting, I'm having a common experience. We're sitting at dinner with all these security around us, and there's this big dinner, and it's the first night we're there. And my dad, I can tell he's unflappable. He's a rock star. He's never intimidated. This is one of his idols, and he's sitting across from him. And I can tell that this is a big moment for him. He's there to present a platinum record of Stay Hungry, which he named after Arnold's book, and named Stay Hungry. And he's to present it to him and say, you inspired me. You're my hero. Thank you. And that's why we're all there. And Arnold doesn't even know this, but by the way. So we're there on the first night, and we're sitting there, and there's all meat on the table. And Arnold sits down in front of us, and my dad takes the steak, throws it in front of him, and he's eating it with pride. And Arnold looks around the table, and he goes, "Where are the vegetables?" And he's like, "There's nothing vegan here." And how's that? Okay,
good.
That was actually, that was pretty
I
good.
surprised myself
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you do? And everyone's like, "Oh my God, sir, we're so sorry. We'll go get some vegetables right now." And my dad's like, "Vegan? Like, what are you talking about? Like, look at all this meat. Like, you don't want some of this delicious meat?" And Arnold's like, "I just made the documentary with Jim Cameron and Jackie Chan called Game Changers. And he's like, "I eat vegan. It's very healthy." He's like, "It's the healthiest diet in the world." And my dad, for the first time ever, after like many years of having his younger son who's eating plant-based, I see my dad like sit up in his chair and pump his chest out and announce, "My son is vegan." And Arnold goes, "He's a smart man. Very good. You're a good father." Yeah. And my dad starts bragging about it to him, and I'm just dying. I'm like, ha, ha, ha. I'm like, oh, that's fucking funny.
The times are changing.
So we arced in that moment. We arced. And he's
For sure.
But Arnold, did you see that doc? It's called Game Changers. It's great. Yeah.
Interesting thing. Jim Greenbaum, who came to me and said, "I want to make a movie about your documentary," he's a producer on game changers.
What
as
a
well.
small world,
Yeah.
man. Small
Yeah.
world, small industry. It's funny. There's definitely like several degrees of separation. I don't know this is the first time we're meeting and you're old friends, but it's funny that our paths have been interweaving and crossing,
yeah.
leading us
Also,
up to this
I just
point.
had to say this is so funny because you just said, "Oh, this is page 55 of your script," right? Cody and I are watching your documentary, and something happens where the link like leaves or something. So I'm like, "Damn it, we have to start it again." He goes, "We were probably about 23 minutes based on the
I said
storyline."
based on the structure, we're 23 minutes in.
structure,
She
literally 23 minutes exactly.
Yeah, so you use feature structure on your doc. Yeah, I can tell. It was amazing.
Because I was like, that's what I know.
Yeah.
That's what I know of story. And storytelling is storytelling, right?
Yeah.
And if you're taking people on a journey, you've got to like take them on the journey and know where the beats hit.
Well, so first of all, before we completely end and get all the info of where to find you and follow the documentary on its journey, is there anything from everything that you've learned with your journey from Happy that you believe is a really important message for people to hear?
It's just such a big like overall. He's such a big thing in my life, such a big part of my life that to pick one thing, I really do think it's give yourself grace. I had, and it's a weird thing to say, but I feel like we have sometimes a hard time giving ourselves grace. Like I cry in the documentary. It took me a year to be able to put that in. I was horrified by my own sadness. I'm super empathetic when it comes to every little living creature, and yet I had less than zero empathy for myself when I saw myself crying. And
I love that moment.
Wow.
it took me a year to allow that to be in the documentary. And so the biggest thing that Happy has taught me personally was to give myself grace. And that goes across everything that blankets my life, because when you don't give yourself grace to fall, then where are you going with that? Like you got to give yourself grace to mess up, to screw up, to do really well, to take the wins, but take the losses. Like give yourself grace. And that's part of being in the present moment too. It's just feel what you got to feel, you know? And Happy has taught me that. And I think that's a big lesson for humans. Like just let us feel what we need to feel, because then honestly, we're more apt to open our hearts and to listen to the world around us. If we're so closed off even within ourselves, I don't see how we're ever going to hear the world around us and hear all of the creatures and all of the things like really on that level where we can understand it. And that's a big thing. With understanding comes compassion. So if we're not taking the time to understand anything, how can you expect somebody to have compassion for something that they don't even take the time to connect with and understand? That's like a full cycle and a full circle. And so I think Happy exemplifies that, because I have a hell of a lot more compassion for birds now just living with Happy, you know, because I understand him on such a deep level. I know when the sparrow's outside my place, I know when the hawk's around. I'll be working and I hear them and I'm like, oh, the hawk's there. I know. I can feel it with their energy and the way their chirps and their, so basically I speak sparrow. Yeah, but it's crazy.
But you're going back to like the ways of us living in tribes where we were able to understand what was happening with the animals that we were coexisting with because of how they were, you know, the language that they were speaking. Even if we can't speak it perfectly, we could understand what was happening. And so that's beautiful. Like what you're expressing is being in touch once again with that form of communication, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, we get jumbled with our words. And it's funny because like I'm a storyteller, right? So I love words. I love entomology and etymology, both. I love them both. But it's like our words get jumbled up. Like we don't say exactly how we're feeling. Sometimes it's hard. It's so hard. I mean, you just said that you shared something that you were scared to share and put into words, but you were living it and feeling it. And if we just get in touch more with how we're feeling, and Happy has allowed me to do that. Not only that, he's allowed me to live out every life purpose. I have the movie. I have my children's book. I went and spoke in front of 500 kids in Toronto, and I get there, and these kids had these T-shirts that said "Happy Ambassadors."
Oh my
and
gosh, got chills.
I mean,
Stop.
it's insane. Yeah.
We love your book. We got it for my nephew.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we got it for his sister-in-law's
it was when your book came out. We were supporting. It was, I guess it came out a couple years ago, right?
It did.
Yeah,
Now
like
it's been
2
like
years.
a year and a half or
Yeah.
so. Yeah. So it's like interesting how when you just give yourself grace to fall, then you can kind of like, you know, things splinter out and you can pick up the pieces and maybe put them back together in a different way. And it's kind of neat. It's a really cathartic and beautiful thing while you're listening to the world around you and getting in touch with everything. I don't know. So I think that's Happy's biggest lesson that he is bringing to the world. I think it's that. It's give yourself grace and you'll give the world around you a little bit more grace, I think, too.
That's beautiful. And there's a lot of people who listen to this, and we do a lot of exploring sort of like the old ways, like the shamans, the oracles, like what that means and what it means in a modern context. And druidism or druids is a name for a certain lineage or type of people that practiced the old way or the natural way, a spirituality outside of the religious constructs. And
Nature magic.
Nature magic. And fundamental to that teaching is that one of the direct lines of communication for the other world and spirit is through animals. My first time sitting down with a Mayan shaman, he had me climb the mountain down and bathe in the river and climb back up. And, he was like, oh, a vulture was circling your head and this is what it means to us. And at the time I was like, this is just animism. But, you go through these experiences and you start to realize that that the universe is communicating to you through symbolism and through it's the living entities that are all around you that are one with this greater creation. And, start to realize like you're never alone and the universe is speaking to you through all of creation. So, I mean, what you're doing is like reconnecting us to this lost faculty, this lost truth of our interconnectedness with the entire animal kingdom. Tanya, you do this too, and you do it for me. You change the way I like view like animals, like in bugs, especially bugs, like bugs that used to scare me. Like I think they're cute, and then like. And it's just getting so crazy to me at this point. Like we'll find like a cockroach in the house. I'm like, let's just give it a tiny hat and name it. We really got to kick it outside. Like, and then I'm like, what's wrong with me? Like,
The thing is, it's all about learning. We condemn what we don't understand, and so this is the thing. It's just about the more that we can take a moment. Like, if you have a plant and you have an infestation of mites, take a second to look at what the mites do. See what they're telling you about your plant. They literally will tell you everything that's going on in your world if you pay attention. And once we start learning a little bit about these beings that we share this planet with, we can have this beautiful connection and understanding and a greater understanding of our world as a whole. It just takes a little bit of time to just gaze in and see and learn about the beings, and then it changes everything.
Yeah,
it does. And I do think that our disconnect with the world around us, everything's one. It just shows how disconnected we are from our heart center.
Yes.
And so that's the whole thing. Like it all comes down to like, connect with yourself, and all those things come to you. And it's such a beautiful, magical realm to sit in. Like my meditations they're magic. They're pure. They're just magic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's so fun. It's like, I think if people just took the time to understand and to learn, we would be in a much, much different place. Humanity would be.
Yeah.
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 Maria, can you tell everybody where to, I know your documentary right now is in the film festival circuit and winning a bunch of awards, by the way. So can you tell them how they can stay on the journey with you and watch the doc when it comes out?
Sure. So Happy's Instagram is the most fun. He's Happy the Sparrow on Instagram. We also have the film Instagram, which is Finding Happy the Film. And so that's across socials. I need to get the TikTok one up for the film. Happy's on TikTok. And then, so that's the film. So the film will be, and we also findinghappythefilm.com. So we have anything Finding Happy the Film will be the documentary, and we'll be posting on there when we get distribution. We are actively looking for distribution. And then I have another movie called Got Daddy Issues. It's a female-driven comedy. It took us 12 years to get this one made, and we had to make it ourselves to make it happen. And it was so scary and daunting to do it. And you come out of it the other end, and you go, I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have it any other way.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Like, I have a movie that's been 12 years that got shut down during COVID at Warner Brothers. So I appreciate that letting me know that the end feels good.
It feels really good.
I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. It got me on camera because I kind of shied away from acting for a while. And so I'm one of the leads. So my writing partner and I were leads in it. And the thing with what I realized is it wasn't acting that I didn't like. It wasn't that at all. It was that I was telling other people's stories like that didn't matter to me.
Same.
Doing certain movies, and I was like, oh, this doesn't I don't know, I feel empty, and I would be in my trailer like writing, and I'm like, I felt better doing that. And so what I assumed was that I didn't like acting, but when I played this role, I was like, oh no, this is fun, because I was telling a story that matters to me and that I feel like could bring something to the world. So it's really
feeding
interesting.
your soul.
Yeah,
Yeah,
feeding
that's
my
all
soul.
that matters.
Yeah. So it's
That's
super
amazing.
cool.
Beautiful. Maria, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being here with us today and sharing your
Never
story.
change.
And
Never change, girl.
Never change.
Oh, God.
Well, I
Caterpillar
know
strollers
change is
forever.
a good thing, but
Well, yeah.
what I mean is
I get what you mean.
Never change the
never
heart.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say it. Never change.
Yeah, I got you. I won't. My mom has told me you're the same kid you were at 3
My mom
running around.
says the
says
same
that
thing. She says that about all her kids.
He's
She says, you're all the
All the
same.
same as a kid. Yeah.
Which is good. Don't lose the playfulness, right?
Yes.
Don't lose the
Yeah,
playfulness.
that's what keeps you in touch with your heart center. It's the
Yeah,
playfulness.
we always say that. We say all the most enlightened
Yeah.
people we know, they act like kids.
Yes.
And like
Yeah.
that's the how you know they're a real one. If they're serious, we're like, that's ego. If they're too serious, I
Yeah.
should say. But okay, we will wrap this up. Tanya, you want to take us out?
Thank you for listening to the Asking for Squares podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, follow, anything.
It helps us.
so much. And make sure to go follow Maria on her journey with Finding
Happy.
Happy Film. And we will see you next time. Thank you.
You out.
Bye.
Peace.